welcome to the My Journey podcast presented by me, Matt Johnson. This time I'm speaking to former BBC weather presenter Alex Deakin. This was the first recording I made for the podcast, which you might be able to tell at times, so I wanted to say a big thanks to Alex for agreeing to this, as at the time it was really just an untested concept. Also, Alex, who currently lives down south, took time out from visiting family to record this podcast, so I'm grateful for that too. We cover the whole of Alex's career to date in this interview, everything from his time at university to appearing on Celebrity Mastermind. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I did recording it. If so, it would be great if you could subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, or alternatively, just share it with a friend. So here it is, the My Journey podcast, episode 2, with Alex Deakin. Welcome to the podcast, star of YouTube in more than one way, the man who literally put Hull on the map, and star of the Great British Sport Relief Bake Off, Mr. Alex Deakin. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much, Matt. Thank you for that introduction, made me smile.
So for those people who maybe recognise the name or the voice, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
My name is Alex Deakin. I am a weather presenter. I worked for 16 years at the BBC. I grew up around here in this very village where we're recording this, and I work for the BBC as a weather presenter on all the channels on there, BBC Breakfast, 10 o'clock news, and I now work at the Met Office in Exeter, where I do weather broadcasts for the Met Office, but also on Channel 5. So I'm a weather presenter, a weatherman in old man's terms.
So we're going to get into all that a little bit more as we go along, but as you said, we're in your home village,
yes,
North Ferriby,
yes,
and I'm just down the road.
Yeah,
we both went to the same school.
Yeah,
I was just wondering a little bit more about that. How did you find school life growing up?
I really enjoyed it, actually. It was weird. It's weird, but I did really enjoy it. I enjoyed my primary school. My primary school is literally 100 metres that way. This where we're recording this now is the house I grew up in. My mum and dad still live in the same house. We're in the bedroom that I spent several years. It's the smallest one because I'm the youngest, obviously. So yes, the school village is literally 100 yards that way. South Hunsley School is a mile and a half the other way. And I had a great time growing up, really. I mean, it's what's not to love. It's a beautiful part of the world. It was a great little school. South Hunsley was nowhere near the size that it is now. I was having a chat with my mate last night about this. I think there's 14 classes now in Take. When I was at school, it was 8. Yeah. 30 kids in each class, so it's almost doubled in size each year. So it's incredible. The site itself has changed dramatically. But it was a good school. We had a good time. Quite a varied mix of kids from Ferriby all the way out to North Cave and Gilberdyke and stuff. So yeah, it was. I remember being quite scared first day at South Hunsley and going to big school. But it was blazer. I think I had a blazer.
Oh, right, okay,
even an oversized blazer that I eventually grew into. But I did enjoy it. I had a very lucky childhood.
So when you were at school, what were your interests? Was weather an interest to you? Or?
No, it wasn't really. I was a really late developer when it comes to weather. I worked with colleagues that were obsessed with weather from the age of 4 or 5. I am not one of those people, really. I didn't get into weather until I went to university. I loved maths, really. I was never very good at English. I was never a big reader. My sister always jokes that I can't read because I was very slow at reading. I didn't really enjoy it. But I was always into maths and sciences and actually languages. My dad's a linguist. We had a really good couple of language teachers, particularly in French at South Hunsley. So I quite like that. But sport as well. I was big into sport. I just loved playing sport, really. Football, rugby. I played rugby at Ionians. Every Sunday I played football at school every break time, and I was cricket captain actually at South Hunsley. Yeah, I played cricket in the summer months as well. So I just love sport, really. Yeah.
Did you want to go into sport? Was that your dream?
No, I was wise enough to realise I was never really good enough to be that. And I was a jack of all trades, master of none. Really, I was reasonably good at all of them without being outstanding at any of them. I wasn't the right size for a rugby player, really. I was all right at football, but I really enjoyed it. I just tore around the place, but didn't really have the skill. Cricket, I don't know. I was captain just because I could organise stuff rather than actually be ability-wise. So I was never that tempted to really pursue it. I never really thought I'd be good enough to do that, so it never really came across my mind.
Did you have a career path in mind, or were you just
No, not really, not at all actually. My mum and dad always joke, I did astrophysics at university, and they always joke that was because it was top of the list, and I got bored looking down the list. What should I do? I wasn't going to do archaeology, so I thought astrophysics was next on the list. Yeah, no, I didn't really have a career path at all. It wasn't until I went to uni I was doing astrophysics, and I did a couple of options in meteorology, and thought, it might be quite interesting to. And actually, even then, the appeal of doing the TV side of thing was quite big. I always thought it'd be quite good to be a weatherman, because you're kind of on the telly. It's quite good fun, but no one really recognises you. You don't get that much attention. So it's kind of the best of both worlds without being like a superstar in quotes. You kind of have the fun without too much of the attention. It did kind of work out like that, but I hadn't have any idea about career path until I went to university.
So where did you go to university?
I went to Birmingham. Birmingham University, yes, which is where I met my wife as well. She also studied the same thing. Okay. Went there in, was it 93, was it? You got some notes. Does it say 93?
No, I've got that you did a master's.
Yes, it's a master's. It was master's is a bit. It was an undergraduate master's. It was a bit strange actually. So I never actually got a bachelor's. It was just a 4-year master's course. Basically, from the get go, you had to choose after the second year whether you were doing a 4-year and then it would be a master's, or whether you could do a 3. So it's an MSci rather than MSc. It's slightly different, but 4 years at Birmingham, great time again. Just a lot of playing sport, really, playing football. We had a team called the Swankers that I'm still very, very good friends with 5 or 6 of the guys we played football with. So, great time, a lot of fun. It was hard work. I was doing astrophysics. Well, a lot of my mates were doing English and also history, where they'd be in university for 2 or 3 hours a week. Whereas I think the lowest number of hours I had to do was 28. Wow. And usually it was 30 plus hours a week.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of students that have never done 28 hours at university. But with regards to the masters, was that something that you could only do a masters for that course, or did you choose?
No, you could choose. Yeah, you could choose. It was a bit strange. I've not heard of any other university doing it before or since, actually. But yeah, you had that option. After the second year, you could just do 1 more year and it would be a bachelor's, or you could do 2 more years and it would be a master's. It's a slightly strange, slightly quirk of the system, really. But it was a good time, very good time. Birmingham really developed actually in the years that I was there. It changed quite a lot. It was always a bit like Hull, really had a bad reputation, and actually slightly unfairly, because and it really has developed and changed a lot into quite a thriving metropolis now. There's a lot going on. So and the actual years I was there were probably the biggest development years. There's a lot happened in those 4 years.
So what made you decide to do the masters rather than the 3 years?
I was just enjoying myself more than anything, and it was basically free. It was another year. It was before you had to pay any fees. I say it was free. I don't think my mum and dad there to pay for my accommodation, obviously. But it was and your local education authority paid for up to 4 years. So it was basically a freebie for an extra year at uni. Why wouldn't you? I was having a great time. I was in the fortunate position. Mum and dad, would pay for my accommodation. I didn't get I got a student loan. Yeah, I got a student loan, but it was only little loans. It wasn't to cover your fees or anything. It was just to cover living. So it lasted about a week. I was just having a great time. So why not? And I did enjoy the course. And actually, I got to the point after 2 years, or after the 3rd year, I pretty much knew I was going to get a 2-1. Because I'd done so much of the coursework, it was like 60% done. So I really just had to turn up for the last year. So I put a lot of work in those middle 2 years. It was, and I didn't know what I was going to do either. I didn't know where my career was going to go. I didn't really have plans until sort of towards the end. So it was a no-brainer.
At what point did you start to form some of them plans?
Plans is probably putting it a bit too grandy. But I did an option in, I think it was the 3rd year. On climate change. So the physics department decided, actually, these people are a bit too sciencey. Let's push them out and give them a bit of a broader perspective. And we could do options in other departments. And I did an option on climate change. I really enjoyed it, actually. And it was good, going into the geography department. Because people assume I did geography. I didn't, because you were doing weather, you do geography. But that's not the case at all. I did geography at GCSE. I didn't even do geography A-level. So just going to the geography department was interesting, and different style of lectures, and I really enjoyed the climate change. And then my final year project was on climate change as well. Within physics, it was the effect of the urban heat island on temperatures and stuff like that. So so that's when it kind of twisted and became more interested in meteorology and weather, and just then applied to the Met Office.
Was climate change really a big topic then, or was it quite forward thinking to be looking at something like that?
It was a thing. I mean, it wasn't called climate change then, it was called global warming, and it was it was a big thing. I mean, I guess it really kicked off really late 80s, early 90s, at a time when I was quite impressionable. I was 16, 17, so it really kind of, everyone was talking about, this is your future. So I was the first generation to really stand up and think, all these older people are ruining the planet for us guys, and our children and stuff like that. So it did have an impact on me there. And I remember buying like green t-shirts and stuff like that, and all the going recycle crazy for about 3 weeks. So it did have an impact then. But even then, it's always been kind of under the surface and bubbling along at that stage. It wasn't really as big as it is now, and people didn't really understand the consequences, and there was there was less evidence as well, of course. So it wasn't as big a thing as it is now, but it was definitely a thing, and a lot, particularly being a student, that kind of mentality, people tend to go along with that kind of stuff. So it was, it was an interesting option to do.
So throughout your educational life, was there anybody or anything that really inspired you to do certain things, or?
In education, not really. Well, inspired me.
Just during that time, it could be on anything, but just during that time.
I'm trying to think who really got. I mean, going back to South Hunsley School, I had a couple of really good teachers. I remember Mr. Binks was a very good French teacher. He kind of, you remember? Yeah. Just his style really just appealed to me, because he was kind of relaxed and chilled, but he also, he was just a good teacher. He got the message across, and but without being too strict, or just had that right balance of fun and friendliness, but without being too strict. So he was a good inspiration. And I guess at the time, all my inspiration really came from sportsmen. From looking at footballers growing up. I've always been a Liverpool fan, so looking at the great team of the 80s and seeing the teamwork that they put in, and then through the 90s, just looking at great sportsmen of the era, really, golfers, their mentality and that kind of thing. So I've always been inspired, not necessarily through my education or through study, but more through the bigger picture, and sport has been a big part of that.
I think this is true for quite a lot of people across the country, not just in Hull, but a lot of people want to get away from where they grow up. Was that something that you...
Not at all, actually. No, that's not at all. No, I didn't... It's weird, actually, because I knew I wanted to move away to go to university, but I didn't know. I always had a real fondness for Hull. It wasn't because I wanted to get away from Hull that I wanted to do anything like that. No. I mean, my mum and dad were always keen. They always made it clear that when I was 18, not that I wouldn't be welcome, but I should be out the door. And going to university was an easy way to do that. But they also made it clear they'd pay for my accommodation, but as long as that wasn't in Hull. They were quite keen that I'd go somewhere away from Hull. So
you were driven out.
That's probably I wouldn't like to say that.
They packed you back.
But pretty much, And when you finished your course, you're not welcome back, by the way. We've changed your bedroom. But getting away from Hull was never a big thing. I loved Hull. I loved growing up around here, going out in town, and I was 18, 19. And some of my mates still live here, and I always love coming back, going to the foreshore. That view of the bridge is just beautiful. So I always enjoy coming back. And I know it never really occurred to me. I mean, obviously I was realistic about opportunities, and there are far greater opportunities in other parts of the country. But if the right opportunity had been around here, I'd have stayed around here. I love the place.
So when people talk about university now, there's a big discussion around whether university is always the right route.
Yeah.
And based on where you are in your career now and your experience with university and what you've heard in the press and stuff like that, what do you think it's something, if someone was trying to go the same route as you would do the same thing again, or do you think you'd look elsewhere?
That's an interesting question. I think... I'm a big believer in science. I'm a scientist, and I'm a big believer in science. I'm a big believer in university. My dad, I've taught at University of Humberside, so it's always been sort of ingrained in me, and I'm a big believer in education. And I'm one of the lucky people that I'm quite good at education. I actually like exams. I'm a bit weird.
Yeah.
I like and I have a scientific brain. So for me, it was a no-brainer. And I like to think that my career path, if you want to be a meteorologist, you have to really understand meteorology. And the best way to do that is to get a grounding in the basic sciences, physics and chemistry. So I think education is very important. But at the same time, it's so expensive to go to university. And specifically doing TV work, that is massively to do with luck than anything else in my experience. Right place, right time. So I wouldn't say you could never do it if you don't go to university. That's not true. There's plenty of options now. I say the most important thing is to be happy, really.
Yeah.
Because if you're not happy and enjoying life, then you're not going to project that, and you're not going to get the opportunities. So if that's right for you, if you want to enjoy it, then I'd recommend it. What I would always say is study as long as you can and get as much information in your head as you can when you're young, because that's the grounding. And particularly if you want to do a science, then the science background is very important. Because people will, it's a sad state of affairs, but if you're involved in a science, like meteorology is a science, if you're not properly trained in that, you will get slightly looked down upon and you won't get as many opportunities.
Right.
But I say there's plenty of ways and means of getting into TV that definitely don't require being at university. So there's kind of two sides of it, really.
Yeah.
But it was just the right thing for me to do, definitely.
Okay. So you then went into the world of work.
Yes.
And did you go straight into the Met Office?
Yeah, I did actually. Yes. Yeah. So I left uni in 98. And I applied for the graduate scheme at the Met Office, and it was great. Basically, almost another 6 months of being at university, because they have a college. The Met Office had a college. The college is now within the main building in Exeter, but back then, Met Office were based in Bracknell, and they had a college in Reading, and it had its own accommodation. It was basically just like going back to the first year of university. There was 25 of us in this class on the forecasting course. And we, 4 or 5 months studying, getting up every day, going to the college, which is a 2-minute walk away, 9 till 5, regular breaks, and more studying. I just lapped it up. It was more science, but it was I got a lot of it because I had done an astrophysics degree, so I understood a lot of that, and I just really enjoyed it, really. And it was just a new science. One of the things I wanted to do, I loved doing physics, astrophysics. It was a great course, but although I wanted to use it, I didn't want to stay in physics. So I kind of used it looking at the atmospheres of stars and other planets, and actually just came closer to home and looked at the atmosphere of Earth. So it was just an extension of that, really. It was good fun. Again, we were early 20s. There was a bar on site. It was good fun. It was good fun. What more do you need? I was used to doing hard work, studying with a slight hangover at times, because that's what I'd done at university. It was just an extension of that. It was good.
As the graduate scheme came to an end, did you go then into the main offices at Met Office?
What happened there? So, actually, there was a bit of a hiatus, because I got on the course and then I studied just observing initially. So the forecasting course that I was employed to do was full. So there was a small group, 4 of us, who were sent out to do observing for 6 months until the next course started. I actually went to Linton-on-Ouse, just outside York, the RAF base there, and observed. So observing is just looking at the weather. So it's all automated now, but back then you actually it was someone's job to go out every hour, look at the weather, record it, write it down, and send it off. On airfields usually, because obviously the cloud base and how far the visibility depends whether they can fly or not. Right. So it has to be above a certain criteria. So you need humans just to make sure, it's okay. So I was doing observing. I did that for 6 months in Linton before I went back to the forecasting course. I did that for 6 months-ish, and then they did an on-the-job placement, which was in Bristol. It was back in the day, again, when we had weather centres. So there was 10 weather centres around. The Met Office had 10 weather centres around the UK, right. Bristol, Cardiff, Birmingham, Glasgow, Leeds, Manchester, London, and Norwich. So I went to Bristol to do actually then on the job training, so forecasting. That was proper shifts. That was quite a shock to the system, sort of 12-hour day shift, 12-hour night shifts. and then I went back to college for a sort of intensive advanced course once you'd finished that, and that was when you were then a forecaster and sent out into the real world. And I was fortunate enough to then get posted to London, but not to the weather centre, to a place called IWP, which is basically where they made ITV weather.
All right.
So I wanted to be in London because that's where my wife was. Yeah. She was in the southeast, so I wanted to be in the southeast. And the London Weather Centre post there, so I got this job at IWP, where they basically made, it was like a media hub really. So we made newspaper forecasts and regional TV forecasts, graphics, and the ITV national graphics. Wow. So it was my job to prepare the graphics. There was a graphic designer there. I'd basically tell him what he wanted, what I wanted, and then I'd brief the presenter and tell them what to say, effectively, because ITV presenters weren't always meteorologically trained.
Right.
So I particularly worked with Sharon Lloyd a lot, who was like a big star of the day. She was on ITV, and she knows a little bit about weather because but she's not meteorologically trained. So it was my job to basically brief her, tell her what to say, and then she'd go upstairs and record the ITV weather like that. So yeah, that was an interesting time. It was a great time, good time. And I met John Hammond there. Martin Davis was the other presenter as well. So some of the presenters were trained, and they didn't need the extra briefing, and some of them weren't. But I learned a lot there about the TV industry. Basically, that's where it all started. And I really, one of the coolest things I ever did was actually appeared on the ITV little graphics for the Euro 2000.
Oh, wow.
So the Euro 2000 graphics, when there was a big match on ITV Weather, I appeared I got an England kit out of it and pretended to kick a ball, and the ball came to the screen and it span around and turned into the earth and the weatherman. So the presenter would then talk about the game or what the weather was going to be like at the game. So that was my big 2 minutes of fame, 4 seconds of fame. I was the guy on the ITV who kicked the football. So I did that, and just spending time in the background of a studio, seeing how the directors worked, pushing all the buttons, and then actually going into the other room and seeing how they filmed it. Was a fantastic experience. I only did that for 18 months or so, but it was good fun. Yeah.
And is that what reaffirmed your belief that you wanted to be on the camera?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it really did. Yeah, that was when it kind of really thought I could probably do that, and just gained a lot of experience from that as well. I still really didn't know how to go about it, how to sort of instigate that change and go to the next level and actually do it. And actually, I remember at the time, after about 18 months, having a chat with my dad and going to the pub up there and talking about, maybe leaving the Met Office and doing an MA in something, or, so I was a bit umming and ahhing about it because the shifts it was quite hard work. Well, it's very hard work. Doing 12-hour shifts. And we used to do four in a row, 4 night shifts in a row.
Did you go from the ITV back side of things onto the BBC front side of things, in front of the camera?
Yeah, pretty much transition like that. And it was a complete fluke and one of those, just one of those real...
Right place,
right time. Yeah. There's a film called The Perfect Storm, which is a terrible film. But it's weather related, obviously, as you probably guess from the title. So don't go and watch it, but it's quite important to the story because so they had a premiere in London and because it was weather related, they invited all the weather presenters.
Okay.
So all the BBC lot got invited, and Sharon Lloyd got some tickets. And I remember actually Sharon phoned up and asked for some extras because she was lovely like that. She would to invite the forecasters like me and a few of the other gang. So she got some extras for us, and we went and we watched this film and it was terrible. But there was drinks afterwards. So there was like a party afterwards in quite a posh bar upstairs, cocktail bar. And it was good fun, and we had a few drinks, and Claire Nazir was there, who I now work with. She was working on GMTV at the time, as it was called, and she introduced me to Helen Young. So the BBC gangs were there. Helen Young was head of the BBC at the time. Now I tell this story as if Helen Young was a bit squiffy at the time and invited me along to a screen test. She may dispute that, but we both had a couple of drinks. She said, "Yeah, come along for a screen test," and. So that's basically how it happened. So Claire introduced me, got chatting to Helen, said, "Yeah, come along for screen tests." As it happened, they were having screen tests the week after So I emailed her and said, remember the other night you invited me, is that all right? She said, yeah, come along. Went to the BBC and just literally stood in front of the camera because I'd been in front of the camera at ITV. It was a lot easier for me to do it. I'd done a bit of rehearsal, a bit of practice, and they really liked me. And they said, all right, get that guy, we want him. It was a bit tricky though because it was not the way the Met Office do things. You're not supposed to. Right. It all has to be formal and filled in forms in triplicate. And actually, so it caused a bit of controversy because it was basically I was employed by the Met Office and the BBC were kind of poaching an ITV broadcaster a little bit. So it got a little bit tricky. But the BBC at that time held a lot more sway. Okay. And so they basically put the foot down and said, we're having him. And so, a couple of months later, I started live for the BBC. And pretty much went from behind the scenes to in front of the camera.
What was your first gig?
I remember the first one. So my first shift was like November. And my first broadcast as such was a Wales regional broadcast. So the person in Wales had gone sick or whatever, as often happened. The main hub, television centre at BBC, would cover if someone went sick last minute because we could just record it and then we'd send them a recording. So it wouldn't be live, but they'd just have a recording of it. So I got to do that recording. And it was one of the best things about it was you don't really have time in advance to know about it. It's just like, right, you can do it. Go and do it, and because it was recording, you can 2 or 3 takes and stuff like that. So it was a lot easier. But so that was my first gig, and I remember it was middle of December. We went to our Christmas party that afternoon. It's terrible. It sounds like I'm out drinking all the time at a party. It's not like that. It wasn't quite like that. Maybe it was, but it was our Christmas party that afternoon. I remember going to the Christmas party, and at about 5 o'clock. I went to the toilet, looked at myself in the mirror. I'd been out all afternoon at this restaurant down in Shepherd's Bush, and I still had my makeup on. It was it was the most embarrassing thing ever. I was still covered in all my foundation from doing my first ever TV broadcast. So that was the first gig, just a BBC Wales recording, and it was then through that Christmas period. Then I was doing lives on the news channel. So they started you off with lives on, they didn't throw you on to the 6 o'clock news, the 10 o'clock news straight away. You usually started on BBC World, actually.
Right.
BBC World was all recordings as well. And that's where you normally started. But actually, I got more into the news channel, News 24 as it was then, with more live, and that's just UK based as well. So the first, my hands are starting to shake now just thinking about how much my hands were shaking the first live broadcast you do is proper terrifying, but so much fun. It's such a buzz when you come off air and you've survived 2.5 minutes without saying anything.
And was it through the BBC News channels that you ended up getting the news at 10 and the BBC breakfast?
Yeah, basically that's it. I mean, there's 23, 24 presenters at the BBC at that time because they had to cover all sorts. They had to cover BBC World. So there were 3 shifts a day doing that. There was 3 shifts a day doing the news channel, and then there was 3 shifts also doing the BBC One main channels and covering regional stuff as well at night. So there was a lot of broadcasts. I think we were doing over 100 broadcasts a day. Between the team, it was all shift work, and 24/7, 365 days a year. So you just kind of moved around and did different shifts. Certain people were allowed to do certain things, and you gradually kind of went up. If the powers that be and the editors on those shows liked you, then you got to do the 1 o'clock news, and then you do the 6 o'clock news, and then the big one would be the 10 o'clock news as well. BBC Breakfast slightly different because it's slightly different audience. So it's a slightly different style and stuff like that, but. Just kind of worked through, and people seemed to like what I did, and eventually, I think it was 2004. I did my first sort of national on the 1 o'clock news. Started with that, so I think I was one of the youngest people at that time because I was just under 30. I think I was one of the youngest people to do the weather because traditionally you won't remember, but in the old it just used to be middle-aged old white men doing it. So I was one of the first people under the age of 30 I think ever to do the lunchtime broadcast, and then from there the 6 and the 10. Is
there still a team working behind the scenes of forecasters that maybe don't want to be on the...
Yes, but not as much. I mean, the thing about the BBC, the team there was we're all Met Office meteorologists, so we're all capable of doing our own Met, if you see what I mean. I mean, I say it's our own. It's all done by the headquarters, really. And nowadays, all forecasting is done basically from the hub. Now in Exeter, the Met Office Exeter, as was then, was in Bracknell. So it's all done by computer. Supercomputer churns out the numbers, and then there's a team at Met Office headquarters, operations centre, where they basically look at what the computer's putting out and look at what other computers are putting out, and they then will issue guidance, which is basically the forecast in sort of quite intense meteorological terms. And then it's the job of the forecaster, whether an RAF base, to then tailor that for their clients, as in the aeroplanes that are flying, or whether you're a presenter, you then tailor that to your audience and make the graphics around that. So, yeah, it got less and less meteorological as time went on, because more and more is being done by the computer in the operations centre at Bracknell. But there was still a team of non-presenters at the BBC that basically do a lot of the admin stuff and make some of the charts for you and just make sure everything was running. But they weren't necessarily meteorologists; they were other sort of admin type staff.
I suppose there must be quite a lot of pressure on you then, as a forecaster. The people are sitting down to breakfast or at the end of the day planning what they're going to do the next day. Like, do you get that sense when you're in the studio?
Oh, completely. Yeah, Well, yeah. So there's the adrenaline rush of actually just broadcasting live to potentially millions of people, which is amazing. Then there's is everything going to work? Is the technical side of the graphics all in the right order? And then there's the actual, is this forecast correct? Now, it's great in a sense when you do shift work like that, because actually you've done all your work. You finish your work, your 10, 11 hour shift, you go and you don't have to worry about it, it's all done. But at the same time, if you go to bed, there's nothing worse than going to bed after a night shift and then you wake up and the weather, the first thing you do is look out the window, right? And it's like the weather's not what it was supposed to be doing. Oh no, what's happened here? And particularly if you've got to go back that night, and then it's just like, oh no, terrible. Now, it doesn't happen often, and it certainly happens very infrequently now compared to, back in the early 2000s, it happened a bit more frequently. But when it does happen, it's still like, oh no, it's still like, what's going on with the weather? I take it quite personally, but that's the beauty, why do meteorology if you're not really involved in it? And it is a kind of personal thing. Maybe a TV screen between you, but you're telling someone what the weather's doing, and you want it to be right.
Especially when you've got them people working, informing like aircrafts and stuff.
Oh,
like
completely,
that,
yeah, much more. I mean, what I did on the TV was probably not as important as the people who are at an RAF base, where the people can fly on and actually impacting their jobs, or briefing the police, or when there's a serious weather event, when we've got warnings out for flooding and stuff like that. So, my job's just standing in front of a map pointing pretty pictures, but there's a lot more to meteorology than that. There's a lot more forecasters who have a lot more pressure on, really, in terms of getting the forecast absolutely spot on.
Let's say you get it through and it says that it's going to be an absolute scorcher on a bank holiday weekend, and you're like, do we really want to raise everyone's hopes too much, or do you just tell it how it is?
There is a little bit of that. There's a little bit of judging, and I mean, I wouldn't call it hedging, because actually the computer models hedge for you now, because we don't just have one computer model, we have lots and lots of computer models, and it's very rare that every single one is saying it's going to be sunny. Certainly a week ahead. But it's about educating the public, but also, if you don't break the news that it's going to be sunny, you can guarantee that the newspapers will, or something, and they'll get it wrong. So actually, it's about taking control of the story. So you have to manage that story, really. And nowadays, it's not just. It would never just be one presenter going out saying, "All right, this is gonna happen." It's definitely a team effort, and it comes from the preview, because you're doing shift work as well. You're getting a handover, so you say, this is what we said. This is what. So the story never veers dramatically, so it's not too confusing. It should be a nice smooth transition. And we have editorial meetings. We have one in the morning. It's one of the most important times of the day, really, where after we've heard from the chief meteorologist about what the weather's going to do, we then have an editorial meeting. It's like, right, how do we manage this story? What are we going to tell? How are we going to put it out on Twitter, on Facebook, and on the various different channels? And it's kind of managing that story. And if it's on a Monday, it's like, well, it looks really good for the weekend, it's a bank holiday, there's a lot of pressure on, then we do have to kind of manage it by just saying, stay tuned to the forecast, things can change, but at the moment it looks pretty good. Now, if all the models were completely disagreeing, and one was saying it's going to rain on Monday, and the other one saying it's going to be scorching, so we probably just wouldn't get to Monday. Okay, you manage it like that, really. You don't go as far. If you haven't got any confidence, or what we talk about confidence in the forecast, if you haven't got any confidence in the forecast, you just don't go that far. or you just say, oh, it's a bank holiday coming up. No, it's a bank holiday coming up. It's too early to say. Stay tuned to the forecast. We'll have more tomorrow. That kind of thing.
And when you say editorial meetings and decisions, is that down to the channel or is that down to the Met Office? So could BBC think, well, we're going to go with that it's going to be overcast, and the ITV might be saying it's going to be sunny?
Slightly different with the channel. Yeah, slightly different with the channel because the BBC now don't use the Met Office, so it's even more complicated. But we have a team, a bit like what I used to do, briefing the ITV guys. There's a team at Exeter called on the media bench, and they will chat and they will brief to ITV. So they will explain the situation, and then it'll be up to them to sort of guide the presenters and say, well, yeah, I know it's a bank holiday, but maybe we don't talk about it yet. Or you can say this, but make sure you stay tuned to the forecast because there is uncertainty. And I think that's one of the things that's really changed, actually, educating the public. Whereas back in the day, you would just say, oh, it's going to be sunny, bang, it's going to be cloudy, it's going to be rainy. Now it's actually more, well, it might not be, stay tuned. You know, you have to keep, because we're not sure. You know, that's the thing about weather. You can't be 100% sure. Sometimes you get it wrong. But actually, most of the time we don't get it wrong because it's more, well, this is what it looks like. This is the most likely scenario. But it could be this. So if you've got big plans at the weekend, make sure you stay tuned, make sure you stay flexible.
Do you think the audience is more educated?
Oh,
now?
Completely, yeah. And that's partly to do with the style and the way we broadcast now. You know, back in the day, it was like specific graphics. You've got one symbol that covers 100 square miles for a whole day. And the weather's just not like that.
Yeah.
You know, 10 years ago, no one knew what the jet stream is. But because of more airtime and more exposure, we can now educate the public. And now a lot of the public do understand what the jet stream is, and it has an impact on our weather. And just the way we communicate is so much easier now to get messages across. It's not just 2 minutes on the telly. You know, you've got, you know, all the social medias that you can get messages across much more slowly and much more, you know, you can take your time. As long as you engage and as long as it's engaging content, you can educate as well. And that's a massive part of it.
So off the back of your BBC fame, you got a couple of other opportunities. So you ended up being on, as we mentioned earlier, the Great British Bake Off Sport Relief.
That was fantastic. That was a great couple. It was terrifying. I also did Mastermind, Celebrity Mastermind. But Bake Off was more terrifying than Mastermind.
Because it was still quite in its early days.
Oh, yeah, it was completely. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't have been asked otherwise. You know? Put it that way. Nowadays, they have proper celebrities on. Back then, they were, struggling a bit. I remember the funniest thing about that was, so it was over 2 days.
Okay.
First day, all the 4 celebrities go in the tent, go out. We're chatting very politely. Oh, how are you? Well, yeah, it's scary, isn't it? Yeah. And then everyone obviously goes home that night and Googles who each other is because we didn't know who we were. So no one knew who the 4. That's how unfamous we were. I went back the next day and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, Alex, how's the weather doing?" No, it's just brilliant. But it was great. I mean, I'm a big fan of it. I love cooking. My mum was a home economics teacher. I love cooking and I love the show. I was really excited about going on, but I'm also ridiculously competitive, and I didn't want to let myself down everyone else. So I was really quite annoyed with myself that it didn't go as well as possible. I like to kid myself I came second, but it was on again the other day. Actually, they showed it before this latest series,
right? Okay, and
it was on some random channel, UK Now or something like that. And my mates were chatting over to channel 147 or you're on. I turned it on. It was terrible. I mean, it was so boring. It was so dull. Now it's completely different. It's the same show. It's exactly the same form, but the editing, it just makes a difference how you edit it and make it much more. It's a completely different show nowadays. It was. I sat through about half an hour and just said to my wife, "This is so boring."
I was going to say, you could technically say you came second over the whole series. So I think it was...
Anita Rani.
She went on to win the series. So you came a close second to her and you would have beaten everyone else.
Exactly. That's what I like to say. That is what I like to say, definitely. So she was really good. The tart she made, I mean, the chili and chocolate tart, they were amazing. So Anita Rani was on it. And she, I mean, everyone knows Anita Rani is now. She's been on Strictly and stuff. But back then, she was just up and coming. So I kind of knew who she was. And then the other 2 people I'd never heard of, and they obviously hadn't heard of me. So it was they were struggling for celebrities. So I use the quotes again then. But nowadays I get I say proper celebrities.
Did you get to eat all of the different bakes afterwards?
You can, but I tell you, after 4 hours, you're done. You want to get out of there. You know what I mean? You get to try them, and I say Anita Rani's chocolate chili tarts were fantastic.
Must be if it stayed with you tomorrow.
But yes, yeah. But yeah, after 4 hours, and it's like when you cooked everything. Actually, you don't necessarily that hungry for it, but it was a great experience. It was great fun, and Paul and Mary were fantastic, and it was Mel. It was always Mel and Sue at the time, but it was only Mel did it because it was the celebrity one. Yeah. She was lovely as well, and it was a great experience. But I remember going home after the first night, after the first day, and hadn't done that brilliantly. I just said, it's supposed to be enjoyable. Alex. Just calm down, have fun. You're not going to do this ever again. Just enjoy it. And I did enjoy the second day a lot more. It was good. Yeah.
And Mastermind?
Mastermind was, again, I came second. Always a bridesmaid. Came second on that to Beverly Knight.
Yes.
Now, this is going to sound really bitter, but I wasn't allowed to do weather. Right, as a specialist subject, you're not allowed to do weather. That's fine. That's fine. But Beverly Knight, what was her specialist subject? Prince. Now, is that fair?
Okay.
Is that fair? And I also wasn't allowed to do Liverpool Football Club because Michael Howard was on. He was doing Liverpool Football Club. He was doing. I got more right. Just sitting watching him do that than he did. I think.
You did the Stone Roses.
I did the Stone Roses, yeah, which I'm very pleased about. It was great. It was good. It was a great experience. Terrifying at first when you sit down, but I it's in a slightly better. I knew John Humphreys. Because when we do the Today programme, we do the weather on the Today programme in the morning. You actually go down and sit in the studio, and John's a nice guy. He's always ready for a chat. So I felt a bit less intimidated perhaps than some. But yeah, that black chair when the lights go down.
I was going to say it's
nowhere to hide.
Yeah. How did you find them experiences? How do they come along? How do they?
Again, just luck really, and they just the people on Bake Off just emailed. They emailed everyone. Or they emailed whoever was head at the time, might still have been Helen Young, saying, we've got this opportunity, could one of your forecasters want to do it? Okay. And then they kind of just check the roster and see who's off. I think Bake Off, they'd asked for any one of four of us. And actually John Hammond was going to do it originally, which would have been hilarious because he is rubbish at cooking. He doesn't even know what a mess is. So yeah, but then they changed the dates and he couldn't do the next day, and me and Peter Gibbs both wanted to do it, and I think it just felt right that I was telling it because you had to be off for 2 days. They weren't going to give you any time off to do it, so you had to be off those 2 days, and it just felt right with the timings that so I got to do it. So that was luck. And Mastermind, I can't remember now. Mastermind. I was on the reserve list the year before. That was funny. Yeah, I was on the reserve list the year before. And I was on a golf course and I got a call saying, Rick Wakeman's just fallen over and twisted his ankle. You're on. I was like, what? I kind of thought I wasn't. Okay. But then they called back half an hour later saying, he's going to be fine. He's all right to do it. So I was like, okay. So I was on the reserve list that year and then got to do it the following year. So again, it's just people just asking, if you're in the BBC and it's like, get a weather person on, who's free. So good fun. But terrifying.
What was it like working at the BBC as a whole?
Great. It is a great organisation. Yeah. It is a good place to be. Everyone's very friendly. The news team, I see. Kate Silverton's on Strictly at the moment, and everyone says, she is lovely. Yeah, she is. And Hugh Edwards, absolute legend. Really, really nice guy. And you see all these newsreaders around. And it's a great place to work. It's a really hard working place. There is a lot of work that goes on in there. There's a lot that goes on. It's just a really, really busy environment. It's weird because the building's quite. We moved there in 2013. The new building, MBH, New Broadcasting House from TV Centre, and I compare it to the Met Office building where I work now, which is 10 years older and looks pristine, whereas the BBC building looks a little tired already. But it's just because of the amount of hammer it gets. There's a lot of people doing a lot of work in that building all the time, and it's just constant. There's a really good buzz. Whenever there's any breaking news story, where the weather centre was, it's on the first floor. It's kind of overlooking, I call it the bear pit. So if you see the news, when Hugh's doing the 10 o'clock news, you see the behind him, that's like the lower ground, so that's down, and that's like we were above that looking down on it. And whenever there was any breaking news story, you would get a real hum from there because the journalists were on it, and it was just any breaking news, anything, any terror attacks or anything like that. It was like, what's going on? So you're always really in the middle of it. And I remember 9/11. I was at TV Centre then. And I remember I just come off shift, and the first tower was on fire and flaming, and they cut to live pictures of it. And it was one of the business presenters talking about it, and not really know, because he wasn't a newsreader. He was just covering until we got to 2:00, and the news presenter came in. Oh, I'm not sure what's going on here. And then the other plane hit. You can actually see it. And I was like, whoa! And the whole place was just unbelievable. Just the tension. It was just incredible. No one knew what was going on, but it was such a buzz because everyone was like, oh, what's going on? We're getting feeds from everywhere because it was incredible. And then obviously, just devastating events afterwards. I remember driving home and listening to the radio as the towers collapsed. Yeah, vivid.
Is there a sense of like camaraderie, even though you're in like different departments?
Oh, completely. Yeah, completely. I mean, everyone's doing shifts. Everyone's working for the same cause. I mean, although we work for the Met Office, you didn't really. A lot of the time, you felt like you worked for the BBC, really. And yeah, I mean, everyone's doing the same thing. Everyone works shifts. Everyone's working for the same goal. And actually, one thing you really realise is when you do anything else. So when you do step outside to do things like Mastermind or Bake Off, there's a lot more competitiveness around. It was one of the great things about the BBC Weather Centre was that there wasn't any egos. There really wasn't any egos. Everyone gets on with everyone. I still go and play golf with 4 or 5 of the guys every year. There's not that competitive edge. It's not very TV-like in that sense.
I suppose that's shown like with Sean buying you all the
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's all very, a very friendly world, weather generally, compared to the other cutthroat business that is TV. I think in news it's a little more cutthroat, but everyone was always friendly to the weather guys. Because we just had fun, really. We just enjoyed it. We were very lucky. But when there's serious weather, everyone knuckles down and everyone gets on, gets the message out.
And then after the BBC, you moved back to the Met Office. So that's where you are now. Mm-hmm. How did that move come about? Was that personal circumstances or
a little bit of everything? Really, things just came together. Right? So although I was at the BBC for 16 years, I was always employed by the Met Office. Yeah. So the Met Office paid my bills, paid my wages, paid my bills. The Met Office paid me all the leave and everything like that. The pension stuff was through the Met Office. So we just were at the BBC. What happened 2 years ago, something like that, 3 years ago, maybe the BBC put their longer than that, 4 or 5 years ago, the BBC put it out for contract that they were wanting to get new weather services in. The Met Office bid for that. The Met Office bid failed. So basically, the Met Office and the BBC relationship was coming to an end.
Okay.
Now, the default position was that everyone who were, all the presenters there would just transfer over. Would transfer over and become BBC staff under TUPE rules, without getting too boring and technical. Yeah, we'd all transfer over. So if you wanted to stay working with the Met Office, you basically had to find a job within the Met Office. Okay. Now, because the Met Office had lost the BBC contract, they still needed to get the weather message out there. So how do you do that? Well, big up our other contracts with ITV, and now we've got the Channel 5 contract as well. But also started making our own content effectively, because there's so many more ways now to communicate with people through social media. So basically, the Met Office had set up their own studio, and they needed a presenter to come down and help be part of that team to present. Mm-hmm. And so, I applied for that job, and got that job, and it was all a bit last minute before the actual deadline of us flipping over. And it was like, even if I'd stayed with the BBC, which I was quite tempted to do, I'd have probably moved out of London and got 2 little girls, and it was probably time to move out. And it was just, the opportunity came, and it seemed like a really good opportunity. And to be fair, I'd been at the BBC for 16 years. There wasn't a lot else to offer, really. I couldn't do any more. There wasn't any broadcasts I hadn't done. Basically, I'd done breakfast all the way to 10 o'clock news. And I'd done it for a while. It was all great fun, but I didn't feel I had a lot more to offer within the BBC, because there wasn't that many more opportunities. If you're weather, you're weather. Journalists are very different to newsreaders are very different. There's not that much crossover. You can't really then just go into a different career within the BBC. It's quite tricky. So it was just an opportunity, right time, right place, and just kind of jumped at it. Moved down to Exeter.
Is it the change that motivated you to keep within the same industry? Because I suppose you've been in it for a while now. I mean, it was a new challenge. Yeah. I think I'm quite good at what I do. I like to think I'm quite good, and I enjoy it. I still enjoy it. I still enjoy weather. Every day is different. And I guess the thought of a new challenge is a bit too scary. I'm just not that motivated to think of something completely new to do. So it was just a great opportunity to
still do what I did, but have a completely new outlook. And it is a very different job. It's not shifts for a start, which is great. So I see more of my family, and it was just a new lifestyle change. And it is a different job, although I still do presenting. It's probably only 25-30% now. Okay. Whereas when you're at the BBC, you do a 10-hour shift, you do 30 broadcasts, it's pretty much all presenting. You don't go to any meetings or anything like that. I had to start going to meetings when I went there. So it's like, ooh. I turn up with them all excited, and people are like, why are you excited? I haven't been to a meeting before. So, yeah, it's different. It's more strategic down in Exeter as well, so the job at the Met Office. And I get to do more opportunities. There's more different audiences. So I present on the Snapchat channel. I basically run the Met Office Snapchat channel, which is fun. And a learning curve. You know, I'm not really Snapchat demographic. You may have spotted that, but I have quite a good relationship with Snapchat now. So we've got us a verified account, so we have fun with that. But also all the other channels, and YouTube's getting bigger and bigger. And we now do a live YouTube broadcast every Tuesday at 1:00. So that's good fun to do. So I still do a little bit of live and interviews. Whenever the weather's severe, stuff like that. So it's subtly different, but it's good fun.
So there's a lot of changes within the industry.
Yeah, like, completely.
People saying the weather's on Snapchat, like,
yeah,
you'd expect it just to be like a graphic rather than somebody being there, standing there talking. And
that's the beauty. You know, nobody under the age of 40 watches weather on TV, do they? Everyone just gets it from their app. Or from YouTube or from whatever. And it's dangerous getting it from your app, because a lot of the apps that come with phones are not meteorologically sound. And there's a lot of danger with apps anyway, because they just tell you what the weather's going. Again, you don't have that uncertainty. That's what a presenter can do, offer that uncertainty. So, well, check with the forecast again. It might not be this. This is what we're thinking at the moment. This is the most likely scenario. You don't get that with an app. You just get, it's raining at 3:00. Oh, it's sunny at 2:00. I remember people that just check it and come up to me and say, oh, it's going to be raining at 3. And it's like, you believe that to the minute. It's like, honestly, they're not that good. Depending on the weather situation, of course. Yeah. It really does depend. And again, it's about educating the public. If you've got showers and it says showers, you've got the sunshine and shower symbol, then people always assume that means it's going to rain at that time. At exactly 3:00 there'll be a shower. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It means there's a chance of a shower. That's what the sunny bit means. It could be the sunny. And you're just hedging your bets. No, it's not. It will probably be all of those weathers in that hour. That's what the weather does here. Yeah. Whereas if you've got a weather front moving through, you've got like a band of rain. And the computer models are very good at modelling those, and so it probably will be correct that it's cloudy in the morning, and then you get a 2-hour slot where it's raining, and then it brightens up again, and that's when it's different situations where your app is going to be spot on. So it's getting that message across, humanising it a little bit as well. But at the same time, people don't go on Twitter to watch a video. They want to get information, and you have to hook them in with something. So there's a really, really good graphics team down in Exeter. I work closely with them, and every morning at that editorial meeting, we decide what we're going to do, how we're going to display it, and what we're going to show. But the Twitter audience is different to the Facebook audience, is different to the YouTube audience, is different to Snapchat. So you've got to tailor it. You've got to know what you're doing. And everything's a learning curve. And every few months, you get a different message out that the latest thing on Facebook is video, or the latest thing on Facebook isn't video. No one's watching video on Facebook, or they're just dodging the so everything's, you've got to stay on top of everything. And that's quite difficult for an organisation like the Met Office, which is, old school civil service, traditional, and, it's quite hard to be that agile as we often use. But we've got a really good team down there that are that. They've got graphic designers who are on it. A couple of other presenters who are really switched on as well, and the people who run the team are really, really good, and just across everything.
Do you have any views on where it might go in the future then? Or are you just
who knows? I mean, if you watch stuff on the Weather Channel that's coming out from them, particularly with the hurricane, and they did one on wildfires, all sort of massive 3D CGI stuff. It looks absolutely amazing. It's more infographic. I mean, that's more sort of almost like evergreen stuff, because it's hard to get forecasts in because the weather moves so quickly, and actually generating that kind of stuff and recording it takes a while. But I think that will get better. So I think the sort of surrounding yourself with the actual weather and the elements is a good way to go. One of the problems we always have with weather is as a presenter or as any kind of meteorologist, you're always looking down on the map, basically. Okay, whereas that's not how people experience weather. People experience weather on the ground, looking up, looking out the window. Yeah. Do they need their coat? Whereas actually, a lot of the time, we're just looking at the big meteorological patterns across the whole of the UK. Most people don't give a monkeys about what the weather's doing other parts of the UK. They just want to know what the weather's doing for them or what the skies will look like. So that's a good way of getting around that. Images. And yeah, who knows what's next social media. I mean, social media's not really shifted in terms of the main channels for a while. You know, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter and Facebook have all been around a while. There's not been a new one for a while. Will there be any new ones? Is there any room for a new one? What's next in terms of studio capability? You know, things are changing all the time with graphics. So it's a really exciting time. I mean, one of the big developments we've got now at the Met Office is touchscreen. Okay. And it's fantastic. You know, it's nothing news. You know, Sky News, Sky Sports, Monday Night Football have been doing it for a while, but actually it really does lend itself to weather really well. A massive new touchscreen that we use on the YouTube Live at 1 o'clock. And it's great. You literally spin the world around. And at the moment we can't draw on that, but that's coming, you know, later this year, probably early next year. We'll be able to draw arrows on it. Just again, it's about educating the public about meteorology so that they can make better decisions, really, so that they're more informed.
Within your world, what's interesting you, aside from the technology and stuff like that? What topics are...
Well, yeah, all of it really. I mean, climate change is a big thing. I'm a part of a WhatsApp group that has weather presenters from around the world, and their big thing is climate change. It's run by a lady in Belgium called Jill, and so it's basically they report back and send into this WhatsApp group anything, big weather stories from around the world. It's a great source of information for us. We can put it out on YouTube, so that's quite an exciting area. And the whole climate change, we don't put that much out at the moment about climate change graphics, but there's so much we can do. So that's a big area of excitement. This whole, you know, CGI, artificial intelligence graphics is really exciting as well. Being surrounded by actual weather is really good, really big. And well, live, I always love live broadcasting. You know, I've grown up doing live broadcasting. My career's been doing live broadcasting, so I love doing live. So live, and you know, being at the heart when there's a big weather story, being at the heart of weather, i.e. the Met Office in the headquarters, being able to interview the chief meteorologist who's actually looking at issuing the warnings, you know, that time. They're being right at the heart of it, just getting right in and letting the public know that's what's going on. People don't realise the amount of work and effort that goes on behind making weather forecasts. You know, there's guys there, I'm lucky I don't do shifts anymore, but the guys working, you know, work their socks off, 12-hour shifts. Christmas Day, they'll all be there. You know, they work really hard to get the weather message out because they're passionate about weather and they know how important it is.
So if someone was wanting to become a weather presenter, and they've got an interest in weather, and they're at that stage where it's how do I get to be on the news at 10? Should they focus more on the presenting side of things or on the getting the knowledge side?
I think you need a basic understanding of the knowledge. But I think the presenting side is always important as well, because who knows where, like you say, who knows where it's going to go. The BBC don't use the Met Office anymore, so I'm not really sure how you get into that now through the BBC. So look out for opportunities like that. But the best way to learn is just to watch a lot and concentrate on that and think about how you would do things differently. I guess in the future there won't be as many meteorologists presenting. It'll just be presenters. If you're good enough as a presenter, then that's probably the way forward. But I would always suggest that, you know, you'll be a better meteorologist or a better weather presenter if you understand meteorology. It makes life a lot easier. And I think you're be a better communicator. You'll be able to communicate the complexities better.
So just educate yourself in different ways.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think you just need to give a broader spectrum as possible. I mean, if you really want to be a presenter, then, you know, does it have to be weather? You know, you're going to learn a lot just by looking at weather presenters, but look at news presenters. You know, there's lots of presenting skills that you can take to any branch. Or equally, if you want to be a meteorologist, you need the science.
So I've got a few questions that I'm going to be asking everybody I interview.
Right.
So I have sent you these prior, so you've had a quick think about them. So the first question is, who or what has been your biggest inspiration throughout your career?
Right. What inspires me? I've got a couple of really. There's kind of career and then there's kind of family life. So I've actually noticed it this week. So just to put it in context, I've been back in Yorkshire this week because it's half term. So I've been at my mum and dad's house. And actually thinking about this, you know, my mum and dad do inspire me quite a lot, mostly because just the way they are in life. They don't take themselves too seriously, which is one of the key factors. they're always happy to have a laugh and a joke, and that's been a big inspiration to me. I've never taken myself too seriously, and that really helps when you're on TV and stuff like that, because nothing's really that important. It's not, although it's TV and people think it's massive. It really isn't. It's just a job. They're very proud of me, but they're equally proud of my brother and sister, and it's just a great way to live your life, I think, just not to take yourself too seriously. So they've really inspired me in that sense, along with my wife as well, who's also the same. Nothing's too serious, doesn't, come home from work, she's, not interested in my TV. She's like, look after the kids, down to earth, but always good fun. So that's a big inspiration. Career-wise, this is really quite embarrassing, because the two biggest inspirations for me in my career are actually really good friends of mine. So Carol, I have to name Carol Kirkwood as a massive inspiration, just in terms of her presenting. She's just a commitment. She's unbelievable. She comes across as this incredibly bubbly, effervescent presenter, and she's like that whenever you see her. She's like that off screen, on screen. She's just a force of nature. She's always happy, always smiling, always got a positive word to say about anything. She's not a meteorologist. She's not trained as a meteorologist. She knows a lot about weather, but she's dedicated. Whenever she'd have a brief from the chief forecaster, she would really listen to her, really take it, absolutely dedicated. So she comes across as this like ball of fun, which she is, but she's also very, very dedicated. Every day now for, I don't know, she's been doing it for 10, 15 years. Mm-hmm. Monday to Friday, gets into the office at 4:45. So she's got up at 3:30, 5 days in a row. Now, I used to do breakfast. I used to really look forward to it for a week. By Thursday, it was like, I can't wait for this to end, because I was just dead. I was absolutely dead. And she'd do it week in, week out. She's an absolute legend, and she's lovely. She's absolutely lovely. So, and she just inspires you as well, just the way she presents. She really brings her presence. She brings it to life, which is what it's all about. If you just put a weather presenter on, most of the time people switch off after 10, 20 seconds. It's quite, because if you're not talking about where you are, why do I care? But she always keep you interested, because she's always got just little nuggets of information, just a way, a style of presenting, and she's got a great smile. So yeah, that would be one. The other one's probably, and I hope he never hears this, John Hammond, because he is a good mate of mine. I worked with him at ITV first, and I learnt a lot from him in those 18 months, just watching him. And I basically kind of stole his style and took it to the BBC, because the BBC weren't really used to it. He then followed me to the BBC a few years later, so it was less easy to copy him. But I think if you want to, he's the best weather presenter this country has, in my opinion. He's very good at telling the story. He's a nerd, a proper weather nerd. He always knows what's going on. Unlike me, I when I go to work, I'm switched on, I know what the weather's doing, but he looks at the weather all the time. And when he's not at work, he's looking at the 300 millibar charts, all the models. So he knows his stuff. He loves weather. He's a proper weather nerd. But he also tells a great story, a weather story. If you watch any of his broadcasts, there's always a start, middle, and end. It just you always know what the weather's doing after a Johnny Hammond broadcast. He's very good. And again, his attitude to life, he's very laid back. He's a good guy, apart from being a Man United fan. He's a good guy. So yeah, I'd probably have to cite those two as the biggest inspirations.
Mm-hmm. And the next question is, how much do you feel your personal brand has played a role in your career?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that. I don't really, because I don't do marketing, or I don't really realise I had a brand or anything like that. I guess the closest thing, I don't think I have at all, would probably be what I say. But I guess one of the things I wanted to do when I first went to the BBC was kind of update things a little bit. It was a strange time at the BBC Weather Centre, because it was just coming to the end of a lot of very well-known presenters who had only done it. They'd only had a handful, so you're way too young to remember. But like in the 80s, it was Michael Fish, Ian McCaskill, John Ketley, Bill Giles. They were the guys that did it, and they did. There was only 4 or 5, and they'd be on every day. They were really well-known, much more well-known than now, because there's so many more presenters. We all do different things. But they were so Bill Giles was there for about 3 weeks before I left. John Ketley had just left. Fishy was still there, but. So it was I kind of came in and thought, right, we need to freshen things up a little bit. So I did kind of want to look smart. So that was kind of why I went to just update the way a weather presenter looked and talked, and just a little bit more on it and a bit more energised. Really was kind of my spin on it. But I didn't really think of it as a brand or anything like that. I don't really think it really took off. But that was just kind of what I did, just to be a bit different, really. And because I knew full well that most people don't don't actually listen after the first 5 or 10 seconds. They kind of switch off, and you've got to get them back in. You've got to think of ways of getting people back in the room, and so there's lots of different ways of doing that, making talking faster, talking slower, or just stopping and pausing, or throwing in a few random words here and there. It's very easy as a weather presenter just to use the tired old cliches about. To always try to mix it up a little bit and just try and use slightly different words every now and then just to pique people's interest to get them back in. So that's kind of what I did, but I don't think it really had much of an impact. Most people don't know who I am, which is kind of how I wanted it to be. I was going back to back in the day. I was quite happy with that, really. I've had a great career. I really enjoyed it. I've done some fantastic things. But yeah, I don't really see myself as a brand. Maybe I should.
This is the thing. People probably pick up on it over the series, but I feel that everyone is a personal brand.
Right, okay.
Opinion.
Okay.
Just because I feel it's like what makes you different
Yeah.
from everyone else and makes people go, we want him for the job rather than
okay.
that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
you've touched on it there about coming in, smartening up, and trying to be more personable.
Okay, yeah. I guess I just never really thought of it. Like, it just kind of happened.
Yeah. So the next one is, can you give us a tip, trick, nugget of info that everyone could use that's about your industry?
I think the best thing to do is always think of the viewer. Always think of the viewer and make it useful to them. Who's watching? Why do they want to know what the weather's doing? And it goes back to that time. Don't look at it from the map down. Don't look at it from the sky down onto the map. There's no point telling people what they can already see. You're there as a presenter to add value. So, there's a band of rain coming in from the west. People can see that band of rain coming in from on the graphics. There's no point you saying that. So you say it will be wet in Belfast in the morning. So people think, it's going to be wet in Belfast, because that's how they talk about the weather. Yeah. They don't think, when they go to the pub that night, did you see that band of rain that came in from the west? It's absolutely chucking it down this morning, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh, yeah, that guy that told me it was going to be. So it's adding value. If your graphics aren't showing that there's a band of rain, you need better graphics, basically. So the graphics do that. You're there to add value, and you're there to make it different. So think of it from the audience point of view. What do they need to know? Oh, it's 14 degrees. Yeah, I can see it's 14 degrees. It's a big 14 degrees. What does that mean? What was it yesterday? Is it warmer or colder than yesterday? Do I need my jacket on today because I didn't have it on yesterday? That's really going to feel cold in the wind. There's a wind to add to that as well. So just make it personal. Now, you can't tell everyone what the weather's going to do everywhere in 2 minutes across the UK. So I always say, actually, one of your best bets, if you really want to know what the weather's doing, is watch your regional broadcast, particularly around here, because you're really lucky. You've got Paul Hudson, who is a trained meteorologist and very, very good, very engaging, great presenter. Very lucky. You go other parts of the UK, and believe me, the local weather forecasters are not as good. So if you really want to know what the weather's doing, always watch the local, because you actually get it across the whole of the UK in 2 minutes. It's really hard to tell people actually what the weather's doing. So you've just got to pick up the nuggets. What's interesting? What's different? What's useful to the public? Always have in mind who you're talking to. That goes for any presenter, really. Who is my audience? Who am I talking to? What language should I be using to talk to them? To try and make it as personal as possible. That's more than one.
Yeah, no, that's just a question that's coming to my head is, when you see that 14, is that, I don't even know if this is a real thing, but like they say, like there's the temperature and then there's how it feels.
Yeah, well,
like it's a bit wind chill and
wind chill or feels like, which is the same thing. It's a bit of a misnomer, really, because it still feels like 14 degrees with a strong wind. You've still got that wind. It doesn't really feel like 8 because you can still feel the wind blowing. So it feels like 8 with the wind blowing. Then that would feel. So it's a bit it's a bit weird. But if it's 14 degrees, if there isn't a wind, will feel warmer than 14 degrees if there is a wind, because the wind. It's all to do with the way it waxes the sweat off you, so your body actually feels colder because. So, and the humidity counts as well. So it can be 14 degrees really dry air, or it can be 14 degrees really humid air, and that feels warmer because you don't sweat as much. So, it's about the feel. Most people wouldn't know if you walk outside. What's the temperature today? What is the temperature out there today? Most people, you've ranged from 8 degrees to 15 degrees. I think if you asked 100 people in the public, and it's not about that. It's about how it feels. It's about, will I need a coat tomorrow? It's as simple as that. You have to catch. You don't want to tell people, you don't want to spoon people, oh, you're going to need a coat tomorrow. But you've got to kind of get the feeling into their head about what it is. You remember what it was like today? Well, it'll be colder tomorrow. It'll be warmer tomorrow. It's about comparison of days.
So the tip to the viewer is not just to look at the map or an app, it's to
No.
listen.
Oh, and for the viewer as well. Yeah, if you're a
to
viewer, you
listen.
need to listen and understand. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, if you just want a vague idea what the weather is, it doesn't really make any difference. Then that's fine. It depends what you want it for. But if your business depends on weather, then you really need. If you're a builder, my brother-in-law's a builder, and he swears by the app. And it's like, well, yeah, but he's quite educated. He knows when it's good and when it's bad. So you just need to tailor it, but just don't be surprised if your app is telling you one thing and something else actually happens.
And then finally, if someone was looking to get into a similar career to you, similar path, like what would your advice be to them?
I think watch and learn is a good way. So actually watching as many broadcasts as you can, and critically as well. There's no such thing as a right way to present the weather. There's no right or wrong way, really. If you're getting the message across, the graphics are there telling you what the weather's doing. I mean, yeah, okay, the forecast can be wrong, but the way you present it, there's no necessarily right or wrong way. Find a style that works for you. Watch and take bits from other people. So, I like the way that they did that. I like the way they did that. But watch quickly and say, I don't really like the way they did that. Or there's so many ways now that you can watch, record, and watch things back. You watch the Country File weather forecast. It's 3.5 minutes long. You watch that 4 or 5 times. You learn an awful lot about what the presenter did, how they linked between charts, how they educated the public about meteorology a little bit and told people what the difference would be. But also, I didn't say that. I didn't say I'd have said that. Watch it critically. So watch and learn, but also learn, educationally as well. Particularly, because not everyone can be a weather presenter, but meteorology is a fantastic subject, and there's plenty of opportunities within meteorology, to work in the Met Office. So, stick with the sciences. It's not about geography; it's about science. So, maths and the sciences are really important, and computer science as well, because it's all done by supercomputers now as well. So, stay as educated as you want. As long as it's interesting. I'm not going to say forcing people to do it. As I said earlier, it's most important that you're happy. But try and get as much education as you can, and learn as much as you can, and watch as many presenters that you like, and just enjoy it, really. I
think it'd be great if someone young's coming through is to start creating their own content.
Of course, that's a great idea, actually. Always practice. That is a good point. I should have said, practice in front of a mirror, record yourself, and it's so easy. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it in 2000, but you can put it on YouTube. People can see it, put it out there. That's a fantastic way. There's a few people that I sort of mentor, and I always tell them that they're doing great stuff, not necessarily on weather, but anything really, any kind of presenting. Find something that really interests you and just start putting it out there. And it doesn't matter if no one watches it, even if you just watch it, but it's really important to watch yourself back and critique yourself. Give it a go. Have a go. It doesn't have to be in a green screen with fancy graphics behind you. Make your own. And that's because of the way, the next big thing on Twitter or on Instagram could be just someone with a map just being funny, doing different things. On Snapchat, we have a map, but I just put different GIFs on to explain the weather, just different different funny GIFs to be more engaging. So there's so many different ways of communicating nowadays. Just give it a go, and don't be afraid to just have fun with it.
So if people want to find yourself or the Met Office, how do they?
Yes, I'm on Twitter at Alex Deakin, and on Instagram as well, Alex Deakin Weather. I don't really do Facebook very much, but I am on there if you really want to search me. Photos of my kids mostly. But Twitter and Instagram, I'm on there, and just at Met Office, again on Twitter and on Snapchat. If you follow the Snapchat channel, then it's often me presenting that. It's not boring weather. Hopefully, it's slightly educational, but also slightly. So we'll do a weekend forecast on a Friday, and then if it's half term, we'll do a forecast for half term, that kind of stuff. But also on YouTube, follow the Met Office on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, you get updates. We do a four a day UK forecast, which is a bit sort of repetitive, but if you want to know the weather, that's useful. But actually more fun is the YouTube live that we do every Tuesday at 1:00, but you can watch it anytime, you don't have to watch it live. But that also goes out now on Facebook Live and Periscope. Look up at Met Office or Alex Deakin, you should find us.
I have to say, on YouTube, I don't know what it is about the algorithm, but once you've watched one Met Office video, it suggests them all from years ago.
Really?
Everything. I've got a lot of Met Office suggestions.
We're slowly going through those and updating them a little. But then the problem with YouTube is if you update them, you lose all the views and stuff like that. So it's about
gets real though.
It's a tricky one. That's a whole new job.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed that.
So that's it. Thanks once again for supporting the My Journey podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode and you haven't yet listened to the Drew Povey one, make sure to check that out. I always love to hear your feedback, so if you have any, drop me a message on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, where you can find me by searching for The MJ Social, all one word. And as ever, if you're listening on iTunes and you've enjoyed this, I'd appreciate it if you could leave a review. To make sure you don't miss any future episodes, subscribe or follow the podcast if you can. Until next time, thanks for listening.